Hello everyone, my name is Holiness.
What exactly is compassion? Compassion, by definition, means to be sympathetic, pitiful, and concerned for the sufferings or misfortunes of others. I like to read a quote by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. As a social animal, this is a brother, sister, showing a smile, showing happiness, you feel happy. This was said by His Holiness the Dalai Lama at the global launch of Sea Learning Day 2. If someone you see is feeling joyful or happy, you naturally feel that. We are humans, and that is a natural instinct to feel. Likewise, if they were upset or sad, we also feel that. All humans feel
This way with one another because we feel this way because we all interconnected. So how does compassion play a crucial role in resilience, especially with self-compassion? This can help individuals respond to difficulties with kindness and understanding. This can create a supportive mindset that facilitates resilience. Resilience, what is resilience? It is the ability to withstand trouble or obstacles in your life. And so sea learning, which is actually social, emotional, and ethical learning, and it's currently promoted by His Holiness Dalai Lama since 2019. This was not created by him, however, it is actively promoted. And so how is compassion truly used in our everyday lives? Compassion can be shown in both easy and difficult ways. This is another quote selected by His Holiness Dalai Lama. Daily, when we look television, a lot of suffering, a lot of poor people, a lot of violence, and seeking these things, you are one of the human beings that other human brothers, sisters, really unnecessary person passing through animal. If you see next person starvation, dying, you enjoy a meal here. How can you feel happy? We are social animals, and even other animals, social animals, elephant or some other, there are one of the other member dying. You can also see some sign of grievance. This is also said at the global launch of Sea Learning Day 2. This basically shows how compassion goes beyond just humans, but can also go through with animals. Because animals, when, for example, the elephant, when one of the members are dying, they will also feel that sadness for them. It's not just humans, so it shows that compassion goes beyond it. And so at this crucial stage right now at the world when there's some turmoil, compassion is one of the most important attributes to have. Because compassion means you're opening up your heart, you're becoming more vulnerable, and therefore opening up your heart, like I already said, and showing all this good thoughts within you. And you are opening up your heart, and you are showing a kind of good relationship with one another, and therefore you have a good time and a good fun. Thank you so much.
In your exploration of compassion, did you come across different levels of compassion?
Oh yes, I think there are certain levels of compassion. Likewise, there are also different kinds of compassion, where there's self-compassion or compassion towards others. There's different levels because I think empathy ties in because empathy is showing it, but compassion is actually doing that thing. So therefore, there are different levels because as you go up and up and up, there's a big difference between helping someone with a pencil or therefore just helping them thoroughly study. There's very big differences.
Thank you for the wonderful comments. You are a young Tibetan growing up in Northern Virginia, and a bridge between two worlds, right? You are surrounded in Northern Virginia with so many people and cultures and languages also. You carry Tibet as well, right? In your name and in your family and in your history. So how do you want Tibetans inside Tibet, a young Tibetan like yourself, to think about you and to know about you and know about what compassion means in your life?
I want them to know that there are Tibetans like them outside of Tibet who know that they exist and that they struggle every day inside of Tibet. And so therefore I do want to like if I was talking to them right now, I would tell them like you are not alone. I am also here. I'm in a similar kind of age as you. And therefore that I understand what you're going through and you are not alone. And hopefully in the future better things can happen for Tibet.
I'll just follow up on that question. That's okay. Um,
Yeah.
I was encouraged to follow up. um, so, one of our challenges in encouraging empathy in the world is that a lot of the conflicts that happen are happening on the other side of the planet. So, the suffering seems far away. So how, as a young Tibetan who's very aware of suffering that happens on the other side of the planet, how would you tell your peers, other students in your school, to care for what is happening in some places that are hidden behind borders, behind walls of censorship, and mountains?
Currently, I think that I do look at news every day. I try to make myself a little bit more aware. I look at Twitter, Instagram, social media platforms like that. I do look at that. I will sometimes talk to my friend like, "What do you think so and so did this?" Or "How do you think this did?" Or like this new bill or this whatever is happening. I ask them about it and I try to get them engaged in conversation because I do think it's so very important that young people especially really realize what's exactly happening and not blinded by the fake truth that is happening currently. And I do think that's really important.
Thank you.
Maybe two questions. First one is following up what you just said. And as a Tibetan person who is also debating about compassion and thinking about compassion, how is it trying to engage with your peers at school who are not Tibetan, who may not be thinking as much about compassion in an explicit way?
I do think there are sometimes some complications because some of my friends don't know about Tibet and they don't realize it. And when I tell them gently, like, yes, so and so, China's government did unfortunately take it over some years ago, and that's how it is right now. I tell them, most of my friends will tell me, oh, I understand. One of my friends, she even offered to make a portrait of that, drawings related to that, and all that turmoil that caused because of that. So most friends, yes, like you said, do respond positively. However, there are some people thinking, oh, so you're still occupied by China. So I tell them, no, it's not true. Tibet was a free country. Tibet was a free country. Then it was later occupied by China. So I try to give my best truthful response because I don't want to appear condescending, but I also do want to make sure that people aren't getting the wrong idea.
One last one. You mentioned self-compassion. I guess my question is for you, in your experience, both are there challenges to practicing self-compassion, and do you see a relationship between compassion for yourself and compassion for others?
I do think there are some difficulties with self-compassion because I do feel like though compassion for others is greatly important, you should also think about yourself. Because I'm not saying in a selfish way. However, because self-compassion is so greatly important because you don't want to push yourself too far, but also you want to show other people compassion as well. And I do think that compassion is greatly important, like I already said. And could you repeat what you said for the second part of the question?
Oh, and do you see a relationship between self-compassion and compassion for others?
Oh yeah, there is definitely a relationship because because you can't really show compassion for others if you're not feeling so well yourself. If one day you're having a bad day and you're feeling sad, other person's trying to get compassion or talking to you and stuff, you can't be immediately smiling because you're already feeling so bad about yourself, you had a bad day. So therefore you do need self-compassion in order to gain that compassion for others.
Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon to our esteemed judges for today. On this auspicious occasion to celebrate His Holiness the Dalai Lama's 90th birthday, I am deeply honored to get this opportunity to share my views on how compassion can be used for the betterment of our lives and our world. Think about figures like Mother Teresa, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or even Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. What do they all have in common? Besides being famous around the world, they lived with kindness and care for others. Their empathy and dedication to helping others weren't just admirable traits. They were central to their success and allowed them to live very meaningful lives. Now, let me share 3 points with everyone today. First, compassion is the foundation of a society. Compassion, defined as the awareness of others' suffering, coupled with a desire to alleviate it, is fundamental to our existence. From infancy, we have relied on the care of others. As we grow, it's the compassion of our parents, teachers, friends, and community members that have supported us. Even institutions like Sunday school and local organizations thrive because individuals like us choose to give their time and energy out of compassion, not for personal gain. Second, compassion is absolutely necessary in times of crisis. Consider global challenges, wars displacing families, natural disasters devastating communities, or pandemics affecting millions of people. In these moments, it's not wealth or power that brings relief, it's compassion. Organizations like Red Cross have helped mobilize, donate, volunteer, and support the individuals in need. Even prominent figures like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett have recognized that true fulfillment comes from giving back, channeling their resources into philanthropic efforts. Third, compassion brings good health and happiness. Scientific studies have shown that negative emotions like anger can weaken your immune system, while positive emotions, including compassion, can enhance your well-being. Practicing compassion reduces stress, fosters emotional resilience, and strengthens our connections with others. As His Holiness has once said, love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity could not survive. Now, let me recap what I shared. Compassion isn't just a nice to have trait, it's essential. It is the foundation of our societies. Compassion guides us through crises and contributes to our personal health and happiness. Those who lead with compassion often find deeper, more meaningful success than those who don't. In conclusion, Albert Einstein has once said, try not to become a person of success, but rather try to become a person of value. By embracing compassion, we not only add the value to others' lives, but also enrich our own. So, is compassion a requirement for a successful and prosperous life? Absolutely. Thank you.
I'm very curious to know how you would take action in the world, um, utilizing your understanding of compassion. Is there a project? Is there something special that you focus on, or something that you envision for yourself?
Thank you for the question. So right now I'm a sophomore, I'm in high school, and I can't do as much as the prominent figures like Dr. Martin Luther King, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or even Mother Teresa, what they have done. But what I feel like I can do is there are after-school clubs. I stated Red Cross in my speech, and so there is a Red Cross club that I have at my school, and I go to it, and I'm an officer. And what I do is I advocate for individuals in need, and I contribute with other clubs and to enrich other people's knowledge in my high school, so that they also know and they can learn and they can come, and that we can all just get more enriched with knowledge.
Thank you for the wonderful speech. If you were to give that speech, however, at your school, what do you think the response would be from your peers, the students, from the teachers, and everybody listening? So a different audience, right? What kind of impact do you think you would have? And for those you would reach, right, what kinds of ripple effects would you want to come out of what you're sharing with them as a message?
If I if I read this speech at my high school, I feel that the students, they wouldn't care for as much. I feel they would have just listened, and I don't think many of them would have taken action. But I believe our teachers, that they would have taken some action. So His Holiness, he's advocated for C-learning in schools, and I feel like maybe my speech would have inspired some of our teachers, maybe administrators even, to start a C-learning program at our school, which then could advocate more about compassion, kind, integrity, more like the human values. And then the students at Oakton High School, they would have taken it, because hearing it from a peer isn't, they wouldn't have listened as well, because it's just a peer. It's like a friend giving a friend advice. If it's a teacher or if it's someone higher up, I feel that they would take that advice more, and it would be more meaningful to them. And for the ripple effect, sorry. I believe one small act of compassion can lead to something big. An example of that actually is that in my school, I was actually struggling chemistry a little bit in the beginning of the school year. And so I got a little shy because I didn't want to tell my teacher that, oh, I don't know how to do this and I need help, because I want to seem like I know how to do it and I can learn it by myself. So actually, one of my friends, so she noticed that I was struggling, and so she kept asking me, kept asking day throughout day, and then finally I started to admit, yes, I do understand this problem, and so she would take her time and help me. That was very compassionate of her. And then I started understanding and learning and being able to understand the formulas of that. And then I actually started looking forward to go to chemistry class instead of being droopy and moody about it.
You mentioned like the research on emotions, like how positive emotions
Yeah.
help, and you also mentioned C-learning. My question is, obviously compassion is one part of emotional intelligence. And how do you think about, like in your own experience, about how compassion relates to other aspects of emotional intelligence?
How compassion relates to other aspects of
Of
emotional
emotional
intelligence.
intelligence.
Okay. that, let's take empathy, that emotion as an example. Empathy is when you feel bad for someone, such as, let's say, I was walking through a street and I see a homeless person. I can feel empathy for that person, but I wouldn't do anything because that's just my emotion that I'm feeling. But being compassionate is doing it. And so if I was compassionate, then I would have, let's say, given money to this homeless person, or I would have given some food to this homeless person. So I feel that compassion and emotions do relate, they do intertwine a little bit, because compassion is the act of doing it, and emotions is how you feel and understand it.
You also mentioned, of course, it's mainly an example of Holiness Dalai Lama, but also you mentioned the example of Martin Luther King Jr. And there are two examples of people who also face great challenges in trying to implement compassion in the world. Because, of course, it's not always easy. What are your thoughts on how to face challenges when trying to implement compassion?
Facing challenges, so this is when emotional resilience comes into place. Emotional resilience is being able to bounce back from something stressful or a difficult event that has occurred in your life. A moment that I needed to use emotional resilience was when I had the loss of my puppy. So emotional resilience is something that I needed to come back, because I was, of course, very sad. I was emotional because the loss of your puppy, of course, you're going to be upset about that. But my family came through to support me, and then my feelings started to change. I started looking to the brighter side instead of the negative side. And so that's how my emotional resilience got stronger. And so His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King Jr., they all have incredible emotional resilience. That is one important thing.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tenzin Daze, and I believe that compassion can lead to a successful life, help with your resilience, and make the world a better place. As the Dalai Lama said, compassion is a necessity, not a luxury. Compassion can bring you to a successful life, because if you think about it, a successful life is to be able to accomplish your life's goal. Your life's goal could be to own a building or to own a store, right? And some people, maybe they just want a big house in their life. And then you could ask them, why would you want that big house? And they would say, oh, because I have such spacious rooms. And you'd ask them, why would you want spacious rooms? And they could say, because it makes them happy. As you can see, a lot of people look for happiness in a materialistic point of view,
Where they see things that always change. If you think about it, if you're really hungry one day and you eat some food, that makes you happy. That is materialistic happiness. Because if you eat and eat and eat food the whole entire time, it's not going to make you happier. If anything, you might even want to stop eating just because of how annoying it is to keep eating. Because you're already full. What's the point of eating anymore? That's materialistic happiness. However, compassion can be forever. It's true and permanent happiness. It can never leave. Because compassion is when you're kind to another. And the reason that can bring you true happiness is because being happy and compassionate to others, it takes your point of view away from yourself. It makes the subject of your life not yourself anymore, which actually ultimately makes somebody else, makes you happy because you realize, oh, I'm not thinking about myself anymore, and I actually believe in other people, which makes you actually, like scientifically, happier. Compassion also helps with resilience, because resilience is to be able to get through something that you feel. Imagine you broke your arm, and you're feeling really, really bad over breaking your arm, because obviously it hurts, right? But then, if you think about that pain, you have to also realize there are also people in worse situations. And I'm not saying that you should, like, oh, I'm better than them because all I did was break their arm. Maybe they broke their arm and their leg. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying instead, feel empathy towards them. Feel bad for them, other than feeling negative emotions for yourself. Feeling bad for them can also lead to you reacting to it and using compassion for them and helping them out. You can also use self-compassion in this term, where your mind would realize, oh, being in a negative zone and being mad and sad all the time, it's really bad for your mental health. And I feel with self-compassion is you being kind to yourself. So you have your mind with self-compassion, you'd realize, oh, please stop being sad because it's not healthy for you. Compassion can also make the world a better place because it uses interdependence.
interdependence when when you can depend on each other, which is what compassion can help you with. As Thupten Jinpa, the translator for His Holiness, has said, loneliness is not to be alone, but the psychological state of being alone. So with interdependence, there would be no wars because everybody would be able to depend on each other with love and compassion. Thank you.
Are you familiar with the different levels of compassion?
I believe so.
Okay, can you name them for me?
Okay. I thought it was more because I think that compassion can have different levels because in compassion there's always like a sacrifice that always ends with your happiness. So it's like if you have to help your friend with her math project, right? And but when you help her, you're also forgetting to do your own math homework because that night, pretend you had like a lot of homework, but instead of doing that homework, you help her with her math. That is a sacrifice in compassion. Also, I believe one of the levels just because you're sacrificing your math homework for that instance. There's also way huger things that you could sacrifice. You could sacrifice even like if your mother was in the hospital sick, but you're having this like the biggest promotion of your life, where you have to say a speech in front of everybody, which would maybe give you a business promotion. To be able to leave this speech to go ail for your mother is a really strong, high level of compassion. Because I feel like if it was your mutual friend, you wouldn't go to the hospital for them because, oh, that's sad, but I really need this business person. But if it's someone that you really, really care about, like your mother or a really, really close friend, I feel like you'd be able to give up this promotion for your friend.
There are so many different ways that we learn. We can learn from a book, we can learn from going to school. We heard about C-learning, which is a wonderful program that is now very, very popular in our community. Can you talk a little bit about how you've learned about these values, empathy and compassion, the principles that His Holiness has been teaching and advocating for? Can you talk about how you've learned about that in your own family, from elders in the Tibetan community? Talk about how you've learned that way.
Yeah, I really don't think I learned about compassion through books or television shows or anything like that. I think I really learned about compassion with my own life. Because sometimes I'll realize, oh, like my aunt's having a really tough time with my baby cousin. And I would realize that even though she's having a tough time, they have to use their patience. And she won't even gain like something with that compassion. Her baby won't say thank you because he's only a child. Obviously he wouldn't. But then I realized that she's doing that with the love and passion from her heart. So with my family really taught me more compassion. My family, my friends, because sometimes I may like forget something at home, and my friend would be like, "Oh, you can borrow mine." And I'll realize like, why would you want to borrow mine? I'm not even gonna give you something for it. I'm not gonna like give you like money, or I'm not gonna do something like that. So I always wonder like, why are you helping me? And then I realized that it's because of compassion. Because compassion is being kind to another person without feeling the need to get something in return. Because what you will receive is happiness. So I realized that compassion can really bring you happiness, which is really how I learned about compassion.
Given that you've gone to school here in Virginia, can this be taught, what you learned in these many other ways, can it be taught in the school curriculum? Could it be taught at your school in Virginia?
I think that with the right teaching, you could learn about it. But I feel like when you're learning about it, it should also be incorporated. Because you can't just tell me that compassion is being nice to someone and not getting anything in return. Because a lot of children would be like, then what's the point of being nice? Like, what's the point of making food for my family if I'm not even gonna get anything? I'll just get the food that I made. Like, you wouldn't understand that but if you start giving them examples and you start noticing, oh yeah, I do that too, that's compassion, and you realize that, like, some people might even realize, oh, I'm compassionate, and not even, and I feel like if the school curriculum taught you about how compassion is used and how they use it, I believe that they can learn through the school curriculum.
Two questions. First one is, you mentioned when you were talking about self-compassion, you mentioned like part of that is getting out if you're in a negative zone in your own mind. How do you personally go about that, and are there challenges to getting out of a negative zone when you're having a bad day?
So how I get in the negative zone is it's kind of difficult for me. Because sometimes I'll be like thinking about so many things, like maybe I got a bad grade on my math test and then I like hurt my arm, and then my friend telling me that we can hang out today. And I feel like really like done with life. Like I would be like really mad and stuff. But then I realized that yes, this is all happening, but this is all just one day. And I also take a meditation class actually. And in the meditation class, it tells you that you have to throw away your emotions and your feelings from the memories. You can still remember the memories, but that doesn't mean you have to feel like, oh yeah, I remember that one time 3 years ago where I broke my arm. It hurt so bad, and I hate the person that did that to me. That's not throwing away. Like you may have kept that down deep, not telling people about it unless they ask you. That's not throwing away. That's not getting out of the negative zone. However, in my meditation, it teaches me that instead of doing that, you should just let it go. You have to understand, yes, this already happened, and it's okay that it happened because it's gone now. It's done. There's nothing more to it. There's nothing. You don't gain anything from being disappointed. If I like hurt myself like walking here, it's not like and I like hit the rock that hurt my toe. It's just gonna hurt me again. It's not gonna. The rock's not gonna feel pain. It's an inanimate object. Like if my sister tells me to be quiet, in my head I'm like, oh, I don't like you. Like it's not gonna harm her. If anything, it's gonna affect me and my emotions at that time. It's just I have to realize that everything that I'm doing and thinking is affecting me. Just because I have rude thoughts on someone else, it won't harm them because they won't even know that I'm talking about them. It would only harm myself. So, and then I realized that oh, what's the point of harming myself when I'm mad at others? Just let it go.
When you try to practice compassion or do practice compassion with your peers, is your experience that they appreciate it and learn from your example and are inspired, or is your experience they try to take advantage of you, or something else?
Well, I like to think that all my friends are amazing people because I mean, like, I wouldn't like be associated with someone that does like not the greatest of opinions, but if I were to, I would try to help them understand. Like most of my friends, if I'm kind to them, they'll say thank you, and you know they don't really need to, but I'm thankful that they do, right? And they're all super kind about it. However, I do have one friend that when I do compassion towards her, she just like brushes it off. Not like, oh, I'm still happy about it, but like she doesn't learn from it or understand what compassion is. And I hope that, but I know that one of the days which I have, she's realized, oh, like one day she actually asked me, like, why do you do all of this? Like, why are you being so nice to me? Because nobody's really friends with her in one of my classes. And then I have to tell her that that's compassion because that's how it works. I don't have to expect anything from you. I just feel happy helping you.
Good afternoon. The human brain is complex and full of wonders. But I believe that out of all of the amazing abilities that our brain gives us, our power to be compassionate and empathize with others is what has allowed us to succeed as a species. Research has shown that our Neanderthal ancestors survived the challenges of their time through cooperation and compassion. So, what is compassion? His Holiness the Dalai Lama recognizes compassion as the heartfelt desire to help others, together with the wisdom that suffering is a shared human experience. Many researchers and philosophers see compassion as a three-step process: noticing the problem, showing empathy, and acting with compassion. So, while I'm talking about compassion, I think mindfulness is equally important. Compassion and mindfulness are interrelated. Mindfulness is not just a robotic awareness of our surroundings. It is also incorporating compassion into a non-judgmental awareness of our emotions and other people's situations. For instance, I once lost a dog that I really loved, and it made me feel really sad. But after practicing mindfulness, I was able to overcome the loss. And after all, life is impermanent. Extensive research has also shown that compassion can reduce burnout, improve relationships, and prevent mental health disorders. Compassion has even been shown to improve longevity, reduce risk of heart disease, and lower blood pressure. And so, while reading about compassion, I saw that compassion is not just an emotion. It is a field of science, a wisdom, as His Holiness is. I have had the good fortune to to attend a social, emotional, and ethical learning class every Sunday. Ever since I started these classes, I have noticed an improvement in my ability to manage my emotions and make more compassionate decisions. I believe every child should have this privilege. If we incorporate compassion into our school learning system, then one day students can come home from school, sit down at the dinner table, and tell their parents about how they learned about compassion at school. I believe that in this way, love and compassion can flourish. There is a seed of compassion in every one of us, and we should always strive to grow our seed into a beautiful tree of mindfulness and compassion. Thank you so much.
In 2011, His Holiness flew to Charlottesville, Virginia, and spoke on introducing more ethical, compassionate awareness in education, in regular school. How would you petition, like, your school administrators to offer a class in compassionate mindfulness?
I'm in 7th grade at my school, and I probably do not have much reach to talk to the administrators, tell the school board, hey, we need compassion in our schools. But what I do have is an influence on my peers and an influence on the people around me. If I, just one person, practice compassion with my peers and show them how important compassion is to our community and our own well-being, then my friends will tell their parents, who will tell their friends, and we can spread compassion and love in this way. I can even advocate through things like putting up posters on the walls, telling my teachers about how important compassion can be. Or if my teachers don't want to teach anything in one day, maybe ask them to play a film strip that His Holiness the Dalai Lama created. All of these ways could be used to make my school a more compassionate and loving place.
Wonderful comment. It's very interesting that you brought the science of compassion to the conversation. And also because you mentioned the Neanderthals, I'm also going to mention the Denisovans, because Tibetans are the people of the entire planet who have the most percentage of this other non-Homo sapien background. So that's something else you may want to integrate in a future speech about the Denisovans, because for all the Tibetans here. So I just wanted to say something more about the science of empathy, which is that we have wonderful social justice movements, especially for young people around the world. And one is about climate change. And Tibet happens to be the place which has one of the fastest changing climates, right? And that's why scientists call it the third pole, because of all the massive glaciers and the fact that most of Asia's headwaters, the waters are being held in Tibet. And yet a lot of young people, a lot of people in the climate change movement in the world don't know about Tibet, right? So I'm just giving this as an example in terms of science. Why is it that we don't have more awareness in Tibet? And for somebody who is advocating empathy and compassion, what can we do, what can you do as a young person to make people more aware of what is happening in a part of the world that's very far away?
Ever since I was a child, I have constantly been told that Tibet is in great need. The resources, the land there, the culture there is being destroyed. And yet, I see that not much of the world is advocating for our health. And a large part of this is due to the Chinese government having a very large grasp on the world and being able to keep things silent. But I'm aware of many individuals who've had the power to speak out about Tibet, who have the guts to tell everyone in the world that, hey, compassion's not free. Tibet is not free. Come and help us. And I look up to these people. I want to one day be able to sit up on a stage and tell everyone that Tibet needs help. But as a child, I think that my best way forward is practicing the basic beliefs of Tibetan people, that we should be compassionate to everyone, show empathy, be loving. And I can also just practice basic Tibetan culture, like language, religion, and clothing. Thank you.
You mentioned the relationship between mindfulness. You talked about mindfulness quite clearly. I think you mentioned the relationship between that and compassion. Actually, I think mindfulness has become quite popular in this country, and I think it's actually thanks to Tibetan people that it's begun that the beginnings of research on compassion have come. Actually, so anyway, what I wanted to ask you is, what's your view on the relationship between mindfulness and compassion?
I think that mindfulness increases compassion, and compassion increases mindfulness. Because when you are mindful, you are incorporating compassion, as I said. You are looking at things in a way of, how can I help? How can I make that better? And when you are doing this, you are setting yourself up to be compassionate. Secondly, when you are compassionate, you are more mindful. If I am compassionate to somebody, and afterwards I realize, oh, I'm so happy that I helped this person, then in the future I'll be looking for more opportunities to be loving and kind to the people around me and to everyone in general. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Today, I want to talk about something simple yet incredibly powerful: compassion. In a world that's currently facing many disputes such as war, division, inequality, and suffering, we often forget that one of the most important strengths a person can have is the ability to show compassion and care deeply for others. It's easy to get caught up in our own lives and overlook what others might be going through, but compassion is what keeps us connected, grounded, and human. Before we go any further, let's clear up a common question. What's the difference between empathy and compassion? Empathy is when we feel what someone else is feeling. It's like stepping into their emotional world and understanding their pain and joy. Compassion, however, takes it one step further. It's not just about understanding someone else's pain, it's about being moved to do something about it. Where empathy says, I understand how you feel, compassion says, I understand and I want to help. So why does this matter? Why is compassion such an important part of a successful life? Let's start with this. Compassion builds resilience. Life is full of setbacks, stress, and moments where things don't go our way. In those moments, showing compassion to ourselves helps us keep going. It reminds us that failure doesn't define us, it teaches us. When others show us compassion, it gives us the strength to stand back up. And when we extend that same care to others, it creates a ripple effect, allowing us to find a kind of strength in ourselves that we didn't even know we had. It also brings people together. When we take the time to care for others, whether it's offering help, listening without judgment, or just simply being kind, we often build a culture of trust, cooperation, and unity in communities. We make people feel seen and valued. That's what makes communities strong. Not just shared space, but shared support. When compassion is a part of how we treat each other, everyone has a better chance to thrive. And here's something really important. Compassion has the power to create and promote peace. It breaks down judgment, softens anger, and opens the door for healing and understanding. Compassion leads to unity, because when we choose to care, we choose to connect. And that choice inspires others to do the same. One small act of compassion can ripple outward in ways we might never see. As His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama once said, love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive. But it's not just about connection, it's also about mental health. Compassion, whether given or received, can reduce stress, anxiety, and depression. When a person feels cared for, they release oxytocin, otherwise known as the bonding hormone, and other endorphins in their brains, which boost mood and creates a sense of safety and connection. In conclusion, compassion plays a vital role in creating a more peaceful and just world. It reduces conflict, fosters understanding, and encourages ethical action. As the Dalai Lama continuously reminds us, choosing not to harm others is a meaningful step toward a better society. By cultivating compassion in individuals, we build stronger, more united communities, something the world needs now more than ever.
With your understanding of compassion, and you are really full of compassion for your friends, for even people who don't know, what happens in terms of cooperation and if you meet an obstacle, how would you respond to somebody being uncooperative?
I believe that a compassionate person and a person who's not compassionate will have very different reactions to an obstacle or a challenge. Because someone who's compassionate is mature. They will find a cooperative and peaceful way to resolve conflicts. Their mindset will be set on not hurting others, but finding out ways to build relationships with them. They will be more connected with people and will show more kindness. So instead of being a weakness, compassion would be a very useful strength in competitive environments.
Thank you so much. You said many important things and also continued the science of compassion theme. I think if you had more time, you'd tell us more about the science of it. I wanted to say one day you woke up with a superpower, and it's not to be invisible or to see through walls, but it's to be able to wake up people and make them more compassionate by hearing you, right? You wake up with the superpower, where's the first place you go and what would you do?
If I had the power to spread more compassion among the world, I would first go to places where there are many unresolved conflicts, such as places where there are wars happening, places where people disagree with each other, and strong emotions might hurt others. Once I go there, I would use that power to make everyone compassionate and make them realize from awareness on how compassion can help to make the world a better place and how they can resolve their conflicts peacefully instead of harmfully.
I think all of you are using that superpower. Talking about compassion. I'll ask two questions. First one is, a few times you mentioned how compassion is a strength, and there's strength in compassion. I think Holiness Lama obviously says that. I don't think there are a lot of other people who have recognized that and who say it publicly. And so can you say a little more about your experience of how you find strength in compassion?
So let's say one of the most recent times that I received compassion was at school. I was taking my iReady test and I didn't have a pencil. Now no one was allowed to talk and I couldn't get up to ask for one. So my friend, I didn't even ask her or tell her anything. She just passed me a pencil because she knew who I was. Showing compassion like that.
I was thinking, so your experience around how you experience the strength of compassion and strength in compassion.
That friend is a very compassionate person, and everyone at my school loves her. She's very nice, and she uses compassion all the time. She never uses harmful words, and has no bad intentions. Like I said, everyone loves her because of the kind of person she is. She has a very mature and peaceful mindset, so no one ever gets harmed by her in any way. I believe that people who show compassion will spread more awareness and will have more people who agree with them and follow them and have that same mindset of spreading compassion amongst the world.
And one last question. You mentioned also when you were talking the connection between compassion, and you said a phrase which I liked, which was safety and connection. And can you say more about your experience of how safety and connection are connected to the experience of compassion?
Okay, so how it's connected to compassion. So in compassionate neighborhoods, there's often like cultures of trust and unity. And people are like seen and valued. And they feel safe to pretty much do anything in that neighborhood because they know that no one will harm them or judge them. In neighborhoods that aren't compassionate, people might not feel as safe or open to say stuff because of like the cruel society. So I believe that like it really depends on like the society that you're in, and like a compassionate society can really like make people feel safe and valued, which is why we should like spread compassion around the world so that more people feel like safe.
Good afternoon. Right now, my grandparents are living in India, but their home is in Tibet. Like my grandparents, thousands of Tibetans have become refugees. His Holiness the Dalai Lama had to make many decisions during those hard times, but he never chose violence. He chose compassion instead. My understanding of compassion is to feel empathy for someone when they are suffering, responding kindly, and expecting nothing in return. I also attend a class on social, emotional, and ethical learning. From that class, I learned mindfulness. So what is mindfulness? Let me give an example. Recently, I was very angry and sad. Normally when I am angry, my anger would last for almost an hour. This time I tried practicing mindfulness, and my anger subsided much quicker. So, mindfulness is to not only be aware of your surroundings, but also your own emotional states and to not be judgmental. Next, I will talk about a problem I am facing right now. Many people, including me, find it difficult to stay away from screens. Excessive screen time can lead to problems such as obesity, neck pains, lower test scores, and mental health problems. I believe mindful self-compassion can help us overcome these problems. Now I will talk about a problem the world is facing right now: war. In the 1950s, Mao Zedong invaded Tibet for two major reasons: the lack of compassion and greed. As a result of this, Tibet's language, culture, and religion are being destroyed. So how can we help? I think we can empathize with Tibetans inside of Tibet who do not have any freedom. Tibetan children can learn Tibet's language and culture. We must also remember that our ecosystem is also in need. Did you know that 20% of the Amazon rainforest has been deforested? That's the size of France. When we deforest, we destroy animal homes. Compassion can save our world. I think we are all born with compassion. From the moment a baby is coming out of a mother's womb, it is being shown compassion. We have been shown tons of compassion from our parents, so we should be grateful and show compassion back to them, especially when they are older and more vulnerable. In conclusion, His Holiness once said, "If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion." Thank you.
Can you give me an example of how you practice compassion when faced with a negative situation or a person?
I remember one time when I was in 4th grade that we were on a field trip, and I had a partner. And my partner, he was having trouble doing any of the work. And I was doing most of the work, and he wasn't learning much. He wasn't really paying attention, so I tried to help him. I'm not saying I'm perfect or anything, but I think I tried, and it helped him. He was able to understand more. He understood what to do, and I think he was thankful for what I did for him.
You mentioned the problem of this generation, which is the excessive screen time, right? I think you're absolutely right. And you also mentioned as your solution mindful self-compassion, right? Can you talk about what you did in your own managing your situation with the screen?
I already talked about the problems that screen time can lead to, but it also affects our future. If we're too addicted to screens, we can't do anything productive. We can't learn. We might, as I said, we might get lower test scores. And a lack of education is very bad, and it can very much negatively impact our future. If we can be mindful, we can think about, well, this is negatively impacting my future. I shouldn't be doing this. And we can respond using self-compassion and saying, well, if I can be compassionate, and then you won't want to do it.
Say that Tibetans 100 years from now, they find a time capsule that you made, and you put in there 3 things that showed what your generation was about. What would be in that time capsule?
If I wanted to show Tibet 100 years in the future what our generation is like right now, currently my generation are very much addicted to screens. I think we do spend lots of time on our computers and phones, and that's very much bad for us, so I might put in a phone. Another thing that our generation sometimes represents is we're becoming disconnected. I don't think we interact with each other in person as much as we do now, as we will do in the future or in the past. We normally now spend time on Instagram or Facebook or those websites, and although we're still talking to others, we're not really communicating with them well. So I might put in something to show disconnection. Third thing I might put in is that our generation is now a little bit, we don't really practice compassion anymore. We used, as Holiness is an perfect example of practicing compassion in the past, and he still practices it now. He is a very different generation, and he practices tons of compassion. He is a very good role model for compassion and mindfulness. So I might put in something to represent the lack of compassion and the lack of mindfulness that we do have in our generation.
I'll ask 2 questions. First one is similar, but I'll ask the same thing about mindful self-compassion. You mentioned that you used it and you impressively decreased the time of your anger. Can you share a little how you did it? What worked in practicing mindful self-compassion to decrease how long you were angry?
So first, what is mindful self-compassion? Mindful self-compassion is treating yourself the same way you might treat your best friend or your mom or dad. You treat yourself well. Mindful self-compassion is also accepting your own faults and trying to improve upon them, instead of saying, I'm so bad at this. I used mindful self-compassion, or tried using it, and it helped me because it calmed me down. Mindful self-compassion also let me know I'm having judgmental thoughts. I was saying to myself, well, I'm so bad at this, he's so annoying, and that was bad for me. It's just hurting me, and it's bad for me. So I tried to use mindful self-compassion to say, well, this is bad for me, and I shouldn't be doing this. I also thought about if I have too much anger, and if I didn't use mindful self-compassion, I would lash out, say something bad, and then they would retaliate, and it becomes a full-blown argument, and that's never good. So I tried using mindful self-compassion to tell myself, I don't want that to happen, so I should calm myself down.
And then one last question. You mentioned how His Holiness the Dalai Lama, although he's a very different generation, is a great role model. And you've already partly answered this, but is there more that you can share about how you think young Tibetans can carry forward that amazing role model, that amazing example?
We all know that His Holiness faced many challenges during his time when he was trying to protect Tibet using only compassion, fighting violence that China was showing him. But I think our generation can still help. We might be able to carry compassion onward, and we can learn from His Holiness watching what speeches that he made. And we can think about how he was compassionate, and compassion can help Tibet. Our generation can carry forward empathy. As I said, we can empathize with Tibetans inside of Tibet who do not have any freedom. If we think about that, then we'll see, well, if they can't do anything because they don't have any freedom, well, maybe we should try doing something to help. So we would want to learn more of Tibet's language, culture, and religion.